Imagine you're sitting on a boat, lost at sea. And across the horizon, you start to see an island ahead of you. But how do you get there? Conventional wisdom would be to go straight, because the fastest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. But once you're in the water, what ends up happening looks more like this. In nature, there are a lot of forces out of your control, like the current, tide, wind, and sun, and all these things end up taking you on a long, winding path. You meant to go straight, but you get blown off course sometimes. I'm a surfer, and this happens to me all the time. I paddle out with my surfboard, aiming to go straight, and somehow end up going in all sorts of weird directions. And funny enough, this is how my life has been like too. We've been told from a young age that we need to follow a straight, linear path to have a successful career and a happy life. But I've spent the majority of my life living the opposite of that. Sorry. And I'm standing here today to tell you that if you end up falling off of the linear path, it doesn't make you a failure. In fact, it might lead you to more success and happiness. Going down the nonlinear path means that you'll stumble upon all sorts of different experiences. It could mean that you grow up living in different cities, forcing you to adapt to new environments. Or it could mean that you go to college under a certain major, and you stumble upon new clubs, friends, and internships that completely change the trajectory of your life. This happened to me too. I went to UCLA to study electrical engineering because in high school, I was so sure that I was good at math. But once I got there and failed one of my first classes, I was starting to question if engineering was truly meant for me. I stuck around and eventually got my degree, but upon graduating, I pivoted into working with design teams in the tech industry. And as it turns out, today, I'm not doing anything remotely related to either of these. Going down the nonlinear path means that you'll do a lot of meandering and facing this huge wave of uncertainty. But over the years, I've started to see that there's actually a lot of value in going down the nonlinear path, including shaping you into a multidisciplinary creative. A multidisciplinary creative is someone that can think creatively in multiple disciplines by applying their unique perspectives from their diverse experiences. A multidisciplinary creative can think outside the box to create something new. We also call these people jacks of all trades, or Jills. And the things that multidisciplinary creatives can make can include things like inventions that change the way we interact with each other. Could be a new song that combines sounds from different generations. Or it could be a new fusion recipe that blends flavors from different regions. I'd like to share another story with you. Back in March of 2020, the pandemic hit while I was working in San Francisco. And all of a sudden, the once vibrant city was completely deserted. Around this time, I was looking for ways to entertain myself in this period of isolation. So I picked up baking. And I attempted to bake one of my childhood favorite Japanese pastries, the anpan, which is also known as red bean bun. And unfortunately, after 2 failed attempts, I decided that I was better off buying a professionally made pastry from a local bakery instead. So I went out and bought one, and as I was eating it, enjoying it, while sitting outside by myself, I was reminded of the days that I used to go on bike rides with my friends before the pandemic. We made it a ritual to go out and stop by a bakery at the end of each ride to pick up some pastries and share a meal together before going our separate ways. And this gave me an idea. I combined my passion for lettering and cycling and put together an illustrated guide, and I featured a bunch of my favorite bakeries and created bikeable routes to them. And I called it SF Bakery Ride. I tapped into my experience organizing events while working in tech and riding around San Francisco and put together a community event where I encouraged cyclists to go on this 20-mile route that I had designed while stopping by each bakery, picking up pastries, collecting stickers, and raising funds for a local nonprofit. And these were the results that we got. We raised over $7,000 in donations, had over 100 cyclists participate, covering 3,500 miles within San Francisco. And all of this was possible because of the long, winding path that I was on that shaped me into a multidisciplinary creative that loves creating delightful illustrations, experiences, and communities. And the common thread in all these multidisciplinary creatives is that each one is able to use creative thinking to blend seemingly unrelated ideas like cycling and baking into remarkable new ways. And the good news is, all of us can do this too. And I've narrowed it down to these 3 principles. Work on passion projects, connect with others on the nonlinear path, and listen to your inner child. Let's go through them. So for the first one, work on passion projects. The best way to get better at anything is to work on a passion project, like SF Bakery Ride. Before working on this project, I wasn't so great at illustrating or organizing a citywide event. But I was interested in designing characters and getting to know my local community more. So I combined all these interests and turned it into a fun passion project and picked up some new skills along the way. And you can do this too. Think of a few things that you've always been interested in or wanted to get better at, and see if you can come up with a unique way to turn that learning opportunity into a fun passion project. And for the second one, connect with others on the nonlinear path. Going down the nonlinear path can feel isolating at times. When I started my creative journey, I felt like a fish out of water. I was starting to go down this path that was very different from my friends who were opting for more traditional career paths. What helped, though, was finding others who were on the same nonlinear path as me. I've attended artist meetups, retreats, and conferences where I can connect with like-minded creatives who are into the same things as me. And these have been really great opportunities for me to meet my creative heroes, too. Seeing that I wasn't the only fish out of water and that these people were on the same journey as me gives me the confidence and courage to keep exploring. It's never been easier to find others who share the same interests as you, so I encourage you to take advantage of this. And before you know it, you might even be able to work on cool projects with them, too. And lastly, 3, listen to your inner child. One of the challenges that we face today is that a lot of us are too focused on our future selves. We study hard to get high-paying jobs so our future self can live comfortably. But we also need to remember not to neglect our younger selves, our inner child. Your inner child reminds you of the things that you used to love growing up before practicality was the focus. They're the things you spent years obsessing over as a kid. For me, it was drawing turtles, making friendship bracelets, and going to the aquarium. You might not realize it, but these things still matter to you. I made the mistake of neglecting my inner child during my early 20s. You see, growing up, I loved art. But as I got older, I was told that art wasn't practical, so I set that part of me aside and went down the linear path of studying science and going into the tech industry. But there was still a faint voice inside of me that was nudging me to keep making art. So I listened. I learned calligraphy and started making cards for my friends and family. And I picked up lettering and painted murals for local coffee shops and businesses. And I taught workshops to share my love for lettering with my community. And not too long ago, I finally embraced what my inner child was telling me all along, and finally left the corporate world to pursue my art full time. The scary thing about the nonlinear path is that you don't always know where you'll end up. And unlike the linear path, there's uncertainty with every turn. And like the current or the wind, there will be many things that you face that are simply out of your control, and that's okay. So instead of fighting against nature, learn to ride the waves of uncertainty. Because it's not just about finding success, it's about finding a life that's uniquely, brilliantly, and authentically yours. Thank you.